I never, ever went out thinking that I wasn't going to come home on time. I never went out thinking I was going to get obliterated with my clients. I always had the best of intentions. And then it's just like the missed phone calls and all this stuff would happen. And I'd be like, that's the whole, how did I get here? And I'll never do that again. I'm such an idiot. And then like the next day, I'm doing it again, because I just don't know what the problem is.
Right.
Trying everything to solve the problem in every way, self-help books, therapy, all this stuff. But I did not know what was wrong with me.
Hey, pod people. Welcome to this week's episode of Why Do People Do That? We have a guest here today, Jason Mayo, who is the founder of Sober Not Subtle and the author of In Case of Emergency, Break Childhood. I love the title of your book. I know I've told you that before.
It's great.
But I really do love it. And I love your book.
Why do people do that? I was late.
You're late.
Sorry.
Should we do it all over again?
Why do people do that? Okay.
You feel like a
I've already disappointed
ventriloquist.
you guys. I've already disappointed. Okay, go.
So introduce yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us
Tell us
about
about you.
Sober Not Subtle.
Okay.
And tell us about your book.
So my name is Jason Mayo, and I'm an alcoholic. Wait, no, that's the wrong room. My name is Jason, and I am the founder of a website called Sober Not Subtle. It's an advocacy platform. People from all over submit stories about their journey with recovery or mental health. We've had people in recovery write for the site, clinicians write for the site. We've had people that have lost loved ones to drug-related deaths. Just about everybody has submitted. It's awesome. And I also wrote a book called In Case of Emergency, Break Childhood.
You got the
Break
title
Childhood.
right?
Got the title right. And I also work as a peer advocate for a community recovery center.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 2 daughters and a wife, and I like to play video games.
Awesome.
It's like your dating
I really
profile.
do. I'm a Fortnite guy. I almost wore that hat.
Do you like pina coladas?
Yes. Getting caught in the rain.
Yeah. So that's great. So we are excited to finally, Heather, we've been talking for a while about having an episode where we really bring in the subject of substance use disorder. And so this, I think, is a really great way to do it because, you have a story to tell. And you tell it in such a great way. I loved reading your book, and I'm not a reader. I was just telling you before.
I was just telling you, I read it
before the episode.
You were telling me how you fell asleep when you were reading it.
I did not. That was my whole point.
I know.
Told you I don't read really because whenever I try to read, I fall asleep. I don't know if it's boredom or what the story is. I just can't seem to get through a few pages, and so I was actually reading your book, and I was reading it and I was enjoying it and I was really into it, and I really felt connected to the story and understanding somebody's life unfolding. And when you can really hear someone's story and it resonates for you in different ways, even if it's not exactly something that you've experienced or been through, where you really kind of feel like you're kind of like seeing a glimpse into this person's soul a little bit. I think that is something that draws people in. And so anybody that I spoke to about your book had the same exact reaction. I read that whole book in a day. I read that whole book in 2 days. I didn't read your whole book in a day because it's a miracle that I was even reading. But, my husband comes into the room and he's like, "Are you reading?" And I was like, "Yeah, isn't that weird?" But so I haven't finished the entire book yet, I'll be honest, but I have gotten through quite a bit of it and I will keep reading it because I love it. So,
spoiler alert. Yeah. He stops drinking and using drugs and gets sober.
Yeah.
Does he survive?
He does.
She's almost finished with the preface. 3/4 of the way done.
I know that you really like Jack Tripper, and not
do.
because I read the back of the book, because I actually read it in your story.
I do. I still love him. He literally is the only person besides Chris Cornell that I cried at when he died.
I cried at Chris Cornell too.
Oh, I still cry when I think about it.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. It's the worst.
Should we all just cry right now and get it over with?
You guys are the core audience, though, for the book, because it's like a Gen X thing. It really is a Gen X story.
And you grew up very close to where we grew up too, which is
know,
a
we
weird
know the same
coincidence.
people.
So
Yeah.
it's
Pal.
Yeah, we're pals.
We are.
From the same place.
Mm-hmm.
so there's that Long Island kind of connection reading that.
Oh, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say Gen X. So maybe we can start there. Can
Sure.
you tell us what that means in terms of like, I mean, besides the fact that we are all Gen X, what makes us a Gen X story specifically? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, the story Gen X is, for me, growing up in Gen X, it's just like a whole different breed. I always say Gen X is the greatest generation because we were like the last generation that really got to play outside and do all these analog things.
We're like, go
Yeah.
ahead.
But we were young enough when technology started to really understand and grasp it. So, where people are in that other generation, baby boomers or whatever it is, they're always like, how do you work the answering machine and stuff? But we
What is
get
the
it.
internet?
No, we get it because we were at that perfect age. So we're kind of like we walked the line.
Yeah.
And, for me, my story, especially with mental health, it really started, I think, because of the type of upbringing that I had. Gen X we were very independent, letting ourselves in and out of the house, getting ready for school on our own, coming back, fixing dinner for ourselves. It was just like me and my brother. And I think we just had to build this exterior shell where we had to really be independent, which is great. Like, I feel like that works in a lot of ways for me and for a lot
There's
of
a
Gen
lot of
Xers.
positive that comes out of those experiences.
100%. But, it also, for me, and in relation to the story, it really helped me build this sort of wall around me where it was hard for me to express how I felt. I took that, like, being independent to I don't want to ask for help. And that went from not wanting to ask for help with homework to not wanting to ask for help because I'm having like a nervous breakdown. It was just, the core of who I was. So, listen, Gen X is awesome. I'm so happy I'm Gen X, but it definitely had a lot to do with, how I wound up as an adult. Still does.
Yeah, that is, I mean, really a very big Gen X problem. Being, a therapist and working in this field for so many years, we see this issue repeat over and over and over and over again, this all or nothing when it comes to asking for help, right? If I need to kind of put these walls up and create this safety around myself of I'm independent, I can do it myself, I can take care of myself. And then we have this idea that if we can't, or we're not, or we are asking for help, or we need help, then that means that we're failing in some way, or that we're not safe.
It's also very much a man thing to not want to ask for help. It is a little easier for women to be able to do that, but for a man to acknowledge weakness, I mean, is really viewed as, less than, inferior, whatever, soft.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, a lot of that, when I hear other people talk about, especially the men not wanting to ask for help, it has a lot to do with the upbringing as far as like who was in the house. My dad always told me to do this, blah, blah, blah. But my dad wasn't in the house because my parents were divorced when I was very young. So not only did I have like no dad to tell me, keep it to yourself, I just had to like make that part up as I went along. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't even have the option of talking to my dad about stuff on a daily basis. So for me, I was like the little man in the house. So I almost couldn't ask for help because if I was going to start asking for help, what's my brother going to do? And my mom's going to fall apart. And it was a lot to take on as a little kid. But, that, again, that's like at the core of who I am still. I mean,
and I was just going to say, you carried that into adulthood.
Yeah. Yeah, I still do. I mean, even in recovery, it's still hard to be vulnerable, and especially with the people that I think I'm closest to. Like I've been with my wife on Halloween, it'll be 33 years that we've been together.
Wow.
And sometimes she's the hardest person for me to open up to. And I don't mean just like, talking about normal stuff. Like we talk about a lot of stuff, but, just like real mental health stuff. Like she didn't know about my depression and like my real mental state until probably into my recovery, like way into my recovery, because I was ashamed of it. Like I didn't even know where to start. Like, how do you even start and say, like, I'm depressed? What does that mean? Most people don't even understand what that really means to be depressed,
Or even, I'm totally fangirling here because I printed out pages from the book. But, when you're starting to see a therapist and you're explaining you feel better and you didn't know what that was, but it's just better. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah, better. That was just it. Better. It might not sound like much, but better was huge. It was new. It was a start, the first pour of a foundation I've never had.
Mm-hmm.
And then with, talking about her, suggesting medication and your initial kind of response to like, no, I can't take meds. And, asking what's the difference between the drugs you've been using all of these years to medicate versus actual, doctor prescribed medication to address the symptoms of, the depression and mental health issues you were struggling with.
Yeah. It's amazing, just to think about like my journey in particular. And you're talking about like, whatever, I get sober. Sorry, guys.
Spoiler alert.
I get sober. But, throughout the my entire story, my big thing was I was always trying to fix it myself. But most time I didn't really even know what the problem was. I think has a lot to do with recovery, and why it takes people sometimes so long is because everybody's always offering these solutions like, just get out of bed, just tough it out, just this and that. Or why can't you stop drinking? That's a big one. And we can talk about that a lot. Why can't you stop drinking? And my answer was like, well, I don't know. I mean, because who has one drink? Like I literally didn't know why I couldn't stop drinking. I had no good answer for it. So, when she's talking about the better, I was talking to my therapist, and it was I had so much inside, and I was so, just so angry and so sad. And like, there was such a void that just getting it out and talking to somebody honestly, to that therapist, towards the end, and I got all this crying out, and she's like, how do you feel? And I was just like, better, but better was like, I'd never felt better.
The beginning of that weight
yeah.
starting to lift
yeah,
and
like
not being
shoulders.
able to kind of identify what that was, but just, having a lighter feeling, just sharing that with another person.
Yeah. And that better was the perfect word to describe it. Like I wasn't fixed. I still don't know can I curse?
You can say whatever you want.
I still don't know what the fuck was going on, but I knew that in that moment, I just felt better, and I hadn't felt that in a very long time, It's
an important part of the journey, right? Because even just crying is this somatic response to just stored up experience, stored up trauma, stored up emotion in your body. So just crying is such a release, right? That probably just pushed through a processing. And so in that moment, you were like, you might not have realized it cognitively, but emotionally, your body knew my healing journey is starting. And this feels good, even though I'm still confused and I'm still not sure I can put all of the dots together and see the picture with clarity. I've moved something, and just being mobile, moving something, right? It feels like a relief.
Well, tears in general, I mean, tears, everybody says tears are cleansing, but they literally are cleansing. Like that's their job, is to get like shit out of your eyes. Like if you have an eyelash, you start crying. So, just metaphorically and like literally tears are cleansing. And I never cried when I was a kid, and I never cried in adulthood. I'm like that guy that is watching Rudy, and I'm starting to tear up, and I'm just like holding it. I'm like, don't do it.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. We make fun of my husband being an actual robot and void of any emotion. And the one thing he will cry is watching Rudy.
Yeah.
Every guy likes Rudy.
Yeah.
But that's his that's our one example of like, he is a human.
My oldest daughter used to say to me when she was little, she's like, I never see you cry. I've never seen you cry. And I'm like, all right. She's like, I hope you break your leg just so I can see you cry. So I was doing a reading a few weeks ago, and she came to the reading, and I was reading this chapter that I just always cry. Like whenever I read it, I can't help it. So I started to cry, and like right at the end, the first thing I did was look up at her, and I was like, that's the first time you've ever seen me cry. And she was like, oh, I was on my phone.
Oh my gosh.
Like, and there's like 50 people around. Everybody started laughing, but she's
missed
like,
a moment there.
She missed me cry. And
Out
I
of
was
curiosity,
pissed.
what chapter was it?
White knuckles and a broken parachute. It was when I tried to stop drinking for 90 days and on my own without getting help.
Wait,
it was
hold on.
Absolute torture. Yeah. That was probably the hardest chapter, one of the hardest chapters to write for me.
What do you think it is about that chapter that brings up so much emotion for you? What's so moving about it for you?
Because it really, so the whole writing process in general for me was kind of sucky. Like everybody's like, it must have been so cathartic and so therapeutic. And I was like, no, fucking sucked.
Painful.
Yeah, it was literally, I walked around for the first 6 months that I was writing, first 6 to 8 months, I was walking around not feeling right. Like just kind of foggy and not, just feeling off. And I didn't like put it 2 and 2 together that it was because I was reliving everything. And, you know,
without guidance or therapy.
No, without guidance and therapy. Well, I did have a therapist. We were talking before, that was very good, but I was talking to her about being depressed or, you know, sad because I was writing, but it never really went past that. And, you know, for me, writing is very different than talking in therapy. Okay. Because for me, like in therapy, I'm talking about what's on my mind, you know, or what happened that week. Or I haven't really gone much deeper in therapy. I could see you looking at me like you want to get at me. Like, you're like, I have the person for you. But I usually talk about.
I just want to start doing therapy right now.
Listen,
I'm just controlling
you want to see me
myself.
cry? Let's do it.
I'm just like,
no, I get
so
it.
many thoughts, but go ahead.
Well, but the thing is, like, so I'm always talking about what's on my mind. But when I write, like, there were so many things in that book that I never even thought were going to go into that book. But when I started writing, like, details just start happening because you're thinking about things that you haven't thought of in a while. And like all these things it's like defragmenting a hard drive. And so when I was writing that chapter in particular, you know, I really, really like the shame. Like there was a lot of shame because that was for me, the bottom of the bottom emotionally. When I really realized that intersection between why I'm miserable and I can't stop drinking. And I always separated the two because I didn't know what the problem was. You know, I never really found out. Nobody ever talked to me about it. Nobody knew. So, you know, just talking about not being able to stop and being at that place where, you know, I can't picture life with alcohol anymore, but I cannot picture life without alcohol. And being in that place is the worst possible place you could be if you have substance use disorder and mental health concerns.
Oh yeah, I mean that
the fear
limbo.
of being known was worse than the pain of staying hidden. I knew it's in there somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, just like I didn't want people to know that I was broken. You know, I had spent my whole life, my childhood, like, you know, whether it was playing sports or being, you know, the pledge president in the fraternity or whatever it was, you know, owning a company, just, I always wanted to be that guy that people can rely on and go to. And I've never talked about anything with anybody, but that was like the great distraction for me, you know, whether it be like trying to be the class clown or trying to be a leader. I felt like if I could just distract you with like, you know, being funny or making sure that I'm taking care of you, you won't have even a second to ask me what's going on because I don't want you to know that I'm screwed.
You didn't want yourself to know.
I don't want myself to know either.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's just been a journey for your whole life where it's like your parents went through this divorce. It was a scary, difficult time for you as a child, right? Growing up and then feeling like I have to hold it together because like, who am I going to? Right. And that's what happens to a lot of children in those situations. It's not always divorce. There could be a number of reasons why children feel that way. But, you know, when something is happening in the family and the child feels like there's no grown up here that I feel safe or comfortable going to with my stuff, you're left to your own devices. And so you're a child whose brain is not anywhere near fully developed cognitively or emotionally. And now you have to write the story. You have to figure out what's going on. You have to kind of figure out what everyone's purpose is and why everyone's doing what they're doing. And so you're writing stories and you're writing scripts about everybody else's stuff. And you're figuring out what role you're going to play in it. And you're, you know, trying to make sense of a world through the mind of a child, right? So it's going to be distorted. Right? It has to be because you're a child, right? You can't see it with the clarity that an adult can see it with. Right. And so you create this world that creates the safety that you need. And now you go into being an adult, right? You start to move into it and you realize life is so complex. It's so nuanced. And if you're going to keep holding on to, you know, this, you know, distorted story, that doesn't make any sense for you, and you're not going to allow yourself the opportunity to see your truth or to get help or to talk to people, then you're going to feel a sense of shame. Like, what's wrong with me? Something's not right. So what happened for you when you started to write was you started to really tell the story, right? And so what we know as therapists is that true trauma healing, the best forms of trauma-informed therapy is the story writing. So when we read that book, by Bessel van der Kolk, I always screw up his name, Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score.
Wow.
Bessel talks about how, it is so important to tell the story, to attach language in some sort of a way to your trauma story, because it is through the retelling of the story that you pull out the distortions, that you're able to process and that you're able to move it through and that you're able to kind of get to the other side of it. So you had unknowingly kept yourself stuck in this distorted, shameful, confusing story. And so when you started to write, you started to move that.
Yeah.
And that's why you felt so fogged out and emotional and all of these things, because you actually started to move through your neural networks, right? What was frozen, this trauma that was frozen from your childhood, and you started to reprocess your whole life through the lens of an adult.
This would have helped like a year ago, just so you know, like, thanks.
Better late than never.
You could have saved me a lot of pain if you just talked to me like on page 1. That would have been awesome.
But you had to experience it.
No, you're totally right. Like, I'm listening to you, I'm like, wow, this is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And the way I explain that is much different and probably much less clear than the way you just described
I'm
it.
explaining it like a therapist,
Right.
and you're explaining it like an author and a survivor.
This is why I need therapy in person. The trauma thing is, like, I don't think that I really like associated trauma with my story until I started writing the book. Okay. And for me, as a man, a 50-year-old man, okay, I thought trauma was, someone coming home from war with their legs blown off, or a first responder at 9/11, or a survivor of domestic violence. That's what I thought trauma was.
That's what most people think.
Most people do.
Yeah, if somebody said, what's trauma? Those are probably the examples that somebody would give you, and if they were asked to give you a definition. But for me, like, what I've learned is that trauma is perceived, and it doesn't really matter what you've gone through. If you perceive that as some sort of event, whether it happened one time or it keeps going, that affects you in a way that, like, changes you or distorts your view or makes you scared, then that's trauma. And writing that book, I was like, holy fuck, I have trauma. Like, my parents were divorced, and that sounds like, in Gen X times, it'd be like, don't be a pussy, your parents got divorced, suck it up.
Well, that's what's wrong with Generation X, by the way.
Well, it is. It really is. But the thing is, like, my whole world was flipped upside down.
Yes.
And like you said, like, you're a kid and cognitively you're not developed. So I never developed processing skills and coping skills from the time I was very little. But finally knowing and understanding what trauma was, to me, really helped me see everything very clearly as far as, like, who I am. And again, all the years that I've had in therapy and all the blog posts that I've written and all the things that I've talked about, writing this book was the deepest I've ever gone into self-exploration. And even though I wasn't doing it with somebody as I was writing, it really helped me. Like, I really feel like I understand my story and who I am now.
Because you told your story. Telling the story is the healing.
Yeah. Which is why I cry whenever I read the book.
Yeah.
Which is why the audiobook is going to be like a mess. Just be like,
I would not, like, if I wrote my own story, I would not be able to read it out loud. Like, I was trying to record an ADHD class for parents the other day. I'll show you after this is over. I actually have videos of this. It's hysterical. And I was talking about, like, certain parts of, like, raising children with ADHD. And I have a son with ADHD. And so we had an emotional journey. And, like, I could not get through this lesson. I was just like, so.
She also can't hear the Barbie speech without crying.
I can't. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And so my husband's looking at me. He's like trying to record me doing this stupid class. And he was just like,
Yeah.
he's like, don't think, just read. I'm like, I literally can't say the words. Like my body isn't allowing it. I'm like, it's a somatic experience. It's like, it's in my body. And as soon as this comes up for me, it gets triggered and like my body needs to cry.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just going to go over there and cry for like 10 minutes and then I'll come back and I'll be able to read it. And he was like, really? I'm like, yeah, I have to get it out.
Yeah.
Otherwise I can't read it.
I'm a crier now. Like when I first got sober, you know, I'm a 12-step guy. Like that's just what helped me find recovery. And, you know, my first 90 days to 6 months, like in my meeting, like I had this, you know, main meeting that I went to 5 days a week, they would literally push the tissues towards me, like as I was going to start to share.
Did you see the tissues that made their way over here?
Yeah, I'm looking. I see it right now. But like I was reading the audiobook today, and it's a really long chapter. It's like literally 14 minutes edited together. And it's a funny chapter, but it's also very emotional for me. And towards the end, it's a very emotional part. And my voice is shaking as I'm reading it, and I'm starting to like tear up. But I listen to it back, and I'm like, I want that when I'm reading the audiobook. I want to start crying during the audiobook, because I'm not going to just say I have to do this again because I'm crying. I listened to it back and I'm like, started to cry listening to me cry because it's hard, you know, which is why I was saying I have to read my own book. Like I can't have somebody read the book for me.
So if someone is listening to your story and they hear you crying,
call 911.
What? In what ways do you think that could actually be helpful to your listeners?
Well, first of all, it would show them that it's okay to feel stuff. I mean, you know, I've done a few readings now, and it's interesting because I'm not going to say who it is, but when I wrote the book, I gave it to this ARC list, like an early readers list. So 100 people. ARC. It's when you put together an early readers list, advanced reader copy. Sorry.
Like an ARC-list? Like
no, ARC.
Okay.
ARC.
Did you know what it was?
No, but I do now.
I didn't know what it was before.
Advanced Reader Club.
Yeah, you could Advanced Reader Committee, Advanced Reader Copy. So, but the publisher that I was working with was like, put together. We have to put together a list of 25 people or whatever that's going to have the book first, because that's just what we need. Hopefully you'll get reviews from them when it comes out and all this stuff. So it wound up being 100 people to read the book before it got out there. And one of the people that read the book was a really good friend of ours, a couple. But the woman, she read it. She's not in recovery. She read it, and I was like, "How was it?" She's like, "It was okay. It was good." I was like, "Really? Like that's it?" She's like, "Yeah, no." She's like, "It was really good, but who's going to read it?" It's like, who's going to want to read this? Like, unless they're like addicted to drugs or they're depressed. And I was like, oh, I think you're missing the point. Like, this is actually probably more for people who aren't than are. So when I'm doing these readings, we were doing this reading, and if there were 50 people in the room, I'd say 40 of them weren't in recovery. And it was the questions afterwards were awesome. And they were so simple. Like the questions, like, why couldn't you stop drinking? And what made you finally like? And I was like, thank you for asking, like, because now I can explain it. Yeah. So I think that when people are reading it, you know, hopefully they feel the emotion, and hopefully they're like, I've felt that. You know, I might not have substance use disorder. I might not be clinically depressed, but I felt like he felt right there. And I know it's okay now.
It's a human experience. Yeah. Any human being who can connect with being a human being and has experienced emotion can relate to this book. Even if I don't have substance use disorder, but this book resonates for me. I can relate to this book because I'm a human being. I've lived, right? I've had stuff. I have trauma. So that is something that I can connect with, you know? And so for you you drank, right? That was something that you turned to at some point in your life, right? Because it was impossible for you to allow yourself to experience emotion, which is why it is such, a big feeling for you right now to be in, and how it's so important, because you're finally allowing what you didn't allow for your whole life. And so I will tell you, as a therapist, that's the biggest problem that people have, almost everybody. And I know that's a big statement, but it's true. Almost everybody coming into therapy has a little bit of a fucked up relationship with emotions, experiencing emotion, allowing emotion, tolerating distress. We all have fears of uncertainty. We all have fears of feelings. We all have roles in our families that we play. We all are afraid to, make this parent upset or make that parent upset, or to ask for help in one way or another. We had somebody else here a couple of weeks ago who came in on a podcast talking about like even going through cancer and feeling like, I can't ask for help. Everyone needs to see me as strong. Right? How do I, the strong person, right, who everyone's looking up to and needs, how do I admit to everybody? What will that mean for them? And so even in this moment of need, in this hour of struggle, you don't feel like it's safe to ask for help, because what will that mean for everyone else? And so we, especially in Generation X, right? Right. This is how we grew up. This is what we were taught, right? Like, kind of like, toughen up, buttercup, like, too bad.
Well,
right?
I like
Don't be a pussy.
Yeah, and I like that you said, what is my role? Like, everybody has a role, and so everybody has an identity in a relationship. And this happened, with my wife and myself too. When I found recovery, like, I became, all of a sudden, I was like responsible. I was answering phone calls when I was out. I was trying to get home on time. I was getting my kids ready for school in the morning. I might have done the dishes like every once in a while even. And all of a sudden, my wife, who's used to taking care of me and being the one that has to fix everything and clean up after my mess, all of a sudden she doesn't have to do that anymore. She doesn't even have to drive when we go out to dinner anymore, because I'm not drinking. I can drive. So, that first part of recovery, like when I was healing and she was healing, it was really hard, because now all of a sudden we've been married for, 20 years or whatever it was. All of a sudden we're starting all over again. Like our relationship, we had to build it again.
New roles.
With new roles. And
which is such a common thing for people in early recovery.
Yeah.
It's kind of redefining yourself and what your role is in that relationship, because you become sort of stuck in the, the caretaker or the enabler who's like cleaning up the messes. And now you don't have to do that. So what do you do? I mean, I'll often see family members kind of sabotaging things because just to get back to what is their normal, that kind of chaos.
Yeah.
You know what happens sometimes in those situations? The person gets involved in the relationship with the person who has the substance use issue because they need to be needed, right? There's that codependency there. Like, I need to have someone to take care of. I need to be the martyr in this relationship. And then when the person gets sober and the person heals and they're showing up different, that person is now no longer in a role that they need to be in because they need to heal, right?
Yeah.
They haven't done their own healing journey that, brought them into this relationship that was maybe not healthy for them in the first place.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that my wife and I were in marriage counseling towards the end of my drinking. And, I'm pretty sure when I first got sober, we stayed in marriage counseling a little bit together until finally marriage was like, we don't need you anymore. Like, 'cause
we got this.
Yeah, you got your own thing going on now, and it was fine. But my wife definitely said to me at one point, like, I like you better when you were drinking, or and you were funnier when you were drinking.
Wow,
which kind of sucked to hear sober. I mean, there were times like I think I had about 5 years sober, and my wife and I were. We were trying to plan somewhere to go for our whatever anniversary it was. And we hadn't gone away in a really long time. And again, I was sober for like 5 years. I'm like, why won't you go away? Like, why can't we go away? Why can't we? And finally she was like, because the last time we went away, you were drunk the whole time and you treated me like shit. And I'm scared to go away with you. And I was 5 years sober. And I was like, oh, Like, I don't want to hear that sober. But, you know, again, everybody heals in their own time.
That was her trauma.
That was her trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even think that. Half the time I was blacked out, so I don't remember it anyway. But like, you know, I was very, very selfish when I was in my active addiction. And what was hard for me to understand is that, you know, I never got a DWI, you know, I never went to jail. I never hit my wife. You know, I didn't do all the typical things that you hear about these horrible bottoms. So I was like, I'm not hurting anybody but myself. And what I learned when I got sober is that emotional security is a thing and it can be stolen. And
wait, I want to quote you.
Okay,
Hold
go ahead.
on.
Yeah.
At home, I was never cruel, never violent, never dangerous, but I stole something more subtle from my family, something harder to see: safety, warmth, and emotional security.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you actually just said that because, you know, I'd printed out a couple of pages that really kind of, you know, struck a chord with me. And I think, you know, something like that is, you know, talking about the family impact of substance use, because this is your journey, but also in the book is kind of other people, you know, the tornado that you create in all of the relationships you've had through the years.
Yeah. And again, you don't, when you're in it, you can't see it. It's really hard to see it because, you know, you create this bubble, you know, where you're trying to like insulate yourself from yourself, but also you're putting the blinders on because you don't want to see how bad it is.
It's so hard.
It's
You might
really,
have to do
really
something.
hard.
Because you're not doing it on purpose. You don't want to do it, right? The reality of it is painful and heartbreaking because it's not something you would ever, or that most people would ever seek or endeavor to do on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? It's just something that starts to happen and it snowballs and then it feels like something so hard to control and so hard to change, especially when you don't even understand why in the first place.
Right. Well, I say in the book, I hope you have it quoted.
Oh, wait, let's see. What do we got?
There's a little single white female going on. So
I just told you,
little bit.
I'm just kidding. There is a part in the book though, where, you know, I talk about like that. I never, ever went out thinking that I wasn't going to come home on time. You know, I never went out thinking I was going to get obliterated with my clients, you know, or that I was going to get obliterated when we went out to dinner with friends. Like it just, that's
Oh my
not
God, the
how I
snowstorm
thought.
story.
Yeah, the snowstorm story,
Yeah,
which almost
I am
didn't
a
make it
little
in the book
freaky right
because
now.
I didn't remember it. I didn't remember that at all until I started writing the book. It's just not something that I talked about when I told my story, like at an AA meeting or something. But when I was thinking about like all the times that I tried to stop drinking, that came back to me. And, you know,
I was a dick.
yeah, I was a dick. But again, I always had the best of intentions, you know, and then it's just like the missed phone calls and all this stuff would happen. And I'd be like, that's the whole, how did I get here? And I'll never do that again. I'm such an idiot. And then like the next day I'm doing it again, you know, because I just don't, again, I don't know what the problem is.
Right.
Trying everything to solve the problem in every way, self-help books, therapy, all this stuff. But I did not know what was wrong with me.
Yeah, so
which
you couldn't
makes it impossible to fix it.
just stop,
Yeah.
right? If just stopping was possible,
Yeah.
then everybody would just stop,
Yeah.
right? Nobody wants this.
No, I was trying to stop, but I wasn't trying to fix it.
Yeah.
But I think also the idea of there's not necessarily something wrong with you. I mean, you're not bad trying to get good. You're sick trying to get well. And I think that's a really big distinction because it doesn't have that kind of judginess to it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think not a lot of people think of it that way. There's, I have to, like, you're going to be able to help me, hopefully, but I wrote an article about my addiction, right? And I wrote it saying, like, I'm sober, but I can feel when things are going on with me because my addiction shows up in different places still, right? Because you can put down drinks and drugs, but the whole thing about healing is changing behavior. So if you don't change your behavior, you're not going to get better. And every once in a while, you know, a couple of holes in the arm, my behaviors start happening again. So I wrote this article about eating Oreos emotionally, right? And that when something's wrong, you know, sometimes I'll be sitting on the couch and I'll be like 50 Oreos. And then finally I'm like, you know, I'm sitting like, why did I do that? I like playing with my stomach and stuff. Like, and then the next day I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. And then I'm eating Oreos and it's literally the same exact thing as it was drinking. So I wrote that article and somebody emailed me and said, hey, I read the article that you wrote about the Oreos. She's like, you might not know this, but there's different strands of DNA, okay? And she said, I think there were like 6 of them. And 2 of them, if you possess those 2 genes, that you are more prone to risky behavior and addiction, possibly. She's like, I would bet that you have those 2 strands of DRDs or whatever they're called. So she's like, so instead of beating yourself up, just know that this is just the way your brain is wired and it's never going to change, but you can figure out how to live your life around that. Like, it's not a bad thing, but you're hot wired. And I think I used the word hot wired at one part of the book because I'm just like, oh, like I learned about, alcohol being an allergy for me. Like, that's how I learned it in my 12-step program. It's an obsession of the mind and an allergy of the body, which is pretty simple. It makes sense. Like, if I'm allergic to peanuts, I'm not going to eat peanuts. I'm allergic to alcohol and I can accept that. But just thinking about it differently, like, I'm actually hot wired. My brain thinks that way, so instead of trying to outsmart it and kick myself, just
being aware that you have this and what can you do to kind of, navigate the world with that.
Yeah. And it's okay that I ate Oreos because something's going on and that's how my brain handles it. So when I'm eating Oreos, instead of like getting angry, just be like, oh shit, I just ate 50 Oreos.
Notice what you're doing.
Something's going on. Right. Let me stop and pause and realize that I'm eating Oreos and watching the news for 3 hours straight. Like there's the obvious, like my therapist used to always say, like, well, what's going on? And I'd be like, oh, well, I had a stressful day here and I've been watching the news and I'm doom scrolling. And she's like, okay, no wonder you don't feel great. I'm like, oh,
okay.
Not everything is a deep problem. Sometimes it's just like, take care of yourself.
Well, a lot of it just has to do with like how you're wired or how you've wired yourself over the years, right? Through all of the behavior patterns to, handle stress, right? Just like I said before, people have a very hard time sitting with and tolerating distress. Most people have a hard time sitting with and tolerating distress. And we all find different coping mechanisms. And so you might have certain coping mechanisms because you are genetically predisposed to have certain coping mechanisms. You may also have certain coping mechanisms because it's just repetitively what you've been doing your whole life. And it could be just what you learned as a kid because of your situation. And so, the brain they say like, cells that fire together, wire together. So, it's just the way that your brain has become wired, right? And so when you are stressed, your brain seeks certain chemicals to be released in the brain to calm it down. It wants to calm down. It wants to feel good. It wants to feel better. So your brain, without you even thinking, your brain knows if I engage in this behavior, it's going to release those chemicals in my brain that I need to calm down and feel better. And I'm just going to go for that. I'm going to go straight for it. And I'm going to just do it without even thinking about it. It becomes just this impulsive response, right? Because I know I'm going to feel better if I eat those Oreos. It's going to release dopamine in my brain. I'm going to feel rewarded. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel motivated. I'm going to feel better because the pain that I'm feeling in my body right now from the stress of the day is overwhelming, right? And it could very well be that you are genetically predisposed. It could be that you have that gene.
Before we go any further, I just heard the other day that Gilligan's Island was based on the 7 deadly sins, and every one of the characters is a different sin.
Really?
Yes.
Will you come back for another extra special episode?
Which character is what?
No.
Like
We're getting sidetracked here.
We can do it really quick.
Howell was like glutton. Ginger was, what's the...
Slut.
Yeah, but what's that? What's that? What's
what
that
is
thing?
the sin of slut?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I think it's true. Well, you said
2
you have to
episodes in a row.
We said we have to throw slut and all those things in here.
Lust.
Anyway, just
Lust. It was lust.
Look it up.
It was
or
a 4-letter
just
word.
think about it. Like that's a whole nother episode. But that just blew my mind. Anyway, somebody told me that.
Bringing us back to Generation X because these are the shows we watched growing up.
Anyway, sorry. What were we talking about?
That is funny.
Yeah.
I was talking about
the motherfucker gummy.
The motherfucker gene. So anyway, I think my whole point there basically was just like understanding what the behavior is doing for you, the eating of the Oreos or whatever it is, and saying, is there something I can do instead that is going to give me the same relief? Or can I practice sitting with and tolerating distress without having to distract myself from it? Can I create a healthier relationship with stress and difficulty. And I think, again, going back to your childhood, it wasn't safe for you to sit with your feelings because there was no one really to support you in it.
Yeah.
You had to do it alone. And when you're a kid doing it alone, right, you kind of create this relationship with emotions, right, that is not healthy because it's like, I have to avoid these feelings because I don't really know what to do with them and there's no help for them. And so I have to just not feel them at all and be strong because if I have feelings, I might upset my mother. Right? Or I might push my father away, or maybe he won't want to visit me again, or maybe I won't be strong enough to take care of my brother, right? Or that girl at camp won't like me, or whatever it is, you know?
Having that knowledge and that self-awareness is definitely freeing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just to understand why you might feel the way you feel or why you handle the things the way you do, it really just lets you give yourself a break. You know, because when I didn't know what was going on, I was just so angry with myself because I just didn't know how to get it. Like I couldn't make myself happy no matter how hard I tried. And if I did, it passed very, very quickly, you know? So knowing that this is what's going on now, it was so freeing. And I didn't really find that out until I was well into recovery because, you know, I was starting to be able to identify with other people that had had similar experiences. Like that's what I think helped fix me. And I'm, you know, fix is it's a day at a time thing, I guess. But like when I sat in the room, my 12-step room for the first time and really just felt, here we go. And I just felt, and I felt that energy, like there was something about that room and the people that I realized maybe they understand, like maybe this is my place. But that never happened with therapy or, you know, Dale Carnegie books or whatever it was.
Right.
It was about that human connection. And that's still what helps me today, whether it's someone helping me or me trying to help someone. It doesn't, you know, there's a book called Many Lives, Many Masters. Have you ever read it?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
It's freaking awesome.
Because I don't read. Asleep.
It's so good. It's so good. But it's about past lives and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But
I think I actually have that book.
it takes like 2 seconds to read it. I promise.
Yeah.
But the whole point is, you know, in life, before you get to pass on to the next life, you're put on this earth to either teach someone something or to learn something from someone.
That was an episode of Oprah.
Okay.
That everyone comes in, you know, these lessons and you can't move on until you've learned that lesson.
She stole that.
I believe that.
But but that's the thing. And until you figure out what that is, so
keep repeating the same until you learn the lesson. Which
is how I try to like treat life at this point, especially like working with people and still in recovery. I don't know. I never know who's trying to help me or who I have to try to. It's like I have no idea. So I just try to just be. Just have those conversations with an open mind and just know
amazing.
that
Just exactly how you want to live life, right? So to bring us full circle back to your story, right? This is why doing this is so important, not just for you, but for everybody else, right? Like you're talking about like where you were and where you are. Where you were is in not understanding and being confused and not having insight and self-awareness. And that led to you judging yourself and feeling shame and being angry with yourself, right? You were looking at yourself and you were like, who am I? What am I doing? What's wrong with me? Like, what the heck? And like, that's so painful and so toxic and so unnecessary. And going through your healing journey and, you know, learning your story and understanding the whys and connecting all the dots is what's brought you into this place of sobriety and healing and growth. And so that's why this is so important, because to go back to what we were saying before, why is it so important for people to read this? Whoever that was, who was like, who's going to read this, right? Everyone should read it because
told you.
Whoever you are. So the reason why everyone needs stories like this is because we are all, except for the robots out there, and the Teslas and all the things that move around by themselves, human beings have stories, and human beings are very often unaware and confused and disconnected from their own story. And so we sometimes find connection to ourself and our own story through other people's stories.
Yeah.
Which is why 12-step is
Yeah.
so, being
Yeah.
able to kind of connect and,
This-
see yourself in other people.
Yeah.
And your website, right? The Sober Not Subtle, like
That's the whole point.
hearing other people's stories.
Yeah.
If you can just find one sentence that resonates for you,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, I'm not the only person that thinks that. Or you know what? I kind of think that too. Wait a minute. That aha moment, that's what it's all about. It's why I do what I do for a living.
Yeah.
It's all about the aha moments. That's how we move forward. That's how we heal.
There was a little bit about when I was writing it, just thinking to myself, like, I'm not like Chandler Bing or whatever his name was, Matthew Perry, right?
Yeah.
So, usually memoirs, you read these memoirs about these famous people like Nikki Sixx or Matthew Perry or whoever it is, and they're so interesting. I just finished, not just finished, a little while ago. This is a book I actually did finish. Todd Bridges wrote a memoir, From Different Strokes, and it's amazing. And he's also sober. He's been sober for probably 20 something years or maybe even more than that. But I read his memoir and I'm just like, even though he's a celebrity, like I found so much identification with his story in particular. But writing this, I'm like, who's going to care? Like, and a little bit of like what she said, like, who's going to care? Because I'm just like, who's Jason Mayo? Like, I actually had to look at my name there.
What's my name?
The more I thought about it, the more I thought like, but isn't that the whole point? Like that it could be anybody.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think it's equally important too for family members to read it.
Yeah.
Because, you do speak a lot about your wife and that impact. And I think, family members that kind of don't understand, like, why don't you just stop? Why can't you just have one tonight? And over and over, your kind of repetition of, because I can't.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why, but I just can't. And, for family members to kind of, because they'll often, make themselves crazy, like trying to fix things or do things or, create circumstances to make it more difficult, whatever it is. And, an addict is going to find a way.
Yeah.
So
One
I
of the
think for
coolest
family
things-
members to understand that is so, so important.
Yeah. One of the coolest things that's happened, which I really didn't intend for it to happen. I didn't really think much before started doing this. I probably should have thought it through a little bit more, but I was a little bit not concerned, but like just a little nervous for my mom to read it and for my dad to read it because, it doesn't make my dad look great, especially the first half of the book. And not because that's how I feel about him now, but that's how I saw it when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And at the time, like, I didn't know he did the best he could with what he had at the time or my mom. I just blamed them for shit. Right.
Because you were 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
As
I was
an adult having kids and being able to go like, oh.
Yeah.
You can look at it from a different perspective, but at 8, you looked at it through the brain of an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was nervous for them to read it because I didn't want to, my mom especially, because she's been through a lot.
Yep.
And I didn't want her to be like, oh, like my kid hates me, But it's actually had like the opposite effect. Like my mom read it also in like 2 days and she loved the book. And I was like, well, how did it make you feel? And she's like, it was really hard to read. She's like, it was really hard to read, but,
Sure.
But I gained more insight into how you felt and how it affected you. And my dad too. And I hadn't had really that many conversations with my dad about any of this stuff because he was kind of away. And, the perspective that he gained, what he told me of how it made me feel and how it made my brother feel was he didn't know. He didn't realize how bad it was. And like, I didn't expect those conversations to happen. And it's been kind of nice. But my mom and I were we were upstate. My wife, my mom, and my kid, whatever. We went upstate and we were hanging out and we were in a store and the book had come out like 2 days before. And I was getting DMs and texts and emails from friends, strangers, whatever. And somebody DM'd me and said, I want to give your mom a hug right now. She said, because I'm a single mom and I feel what she was going through and I just want to give her a hug. And I showed my mom because we were in the store together.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I think that's when it clicked for her that like her story is going to help people too.
Yeah.
And she went from like, I don't know if this is good, like to like, I'm going to lean into it. Like, I'm going to lean into it. And
right, she's not just like the bad guy in the story.
No,
she's a human being who also had pain and who also was having a hard time.
Single mom who like raised two horrible boys, you know, in like
just
a really
boys.
hard time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's stuff that's like actually really happened that surprised me in a good way. The conversations with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great, because sometimes we think that like we can't share our feelings with the people in our lives and it's going to hurt them. Like, you spent your whole childhood being afraid to tell your mom how you felt.
Yeah.
And right, here you are, right?
Yeah.
Coming full circle, telling your mom exactly
Yeah.
how you felt
And the universe
through every stage of your life, and she accepted it.
Yeah. Yeah. We had breakfast the other morning, just me and her, which is something that we never used to do. But, and you know, we talk, and I'm very close with my mom and close with my dad. Like, we all have good relationships now, but it's nice. Like, there was a time when as an adult, I remember like my dad would come in to like hug me and kiss me. And I would like this, kind of like my daughter does, my youngest daughter does with me now. But I just, as an adult, you know how weird it is as an adult to just kind of like go like this when your dad's going to like give you a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it's not as bad now because I get it. Like, and I understand, like, as a parent, like I smother my kids, like to the point where it's annoying for them, but I understand it. And I think now them understanding like why, you know, my mom understanding now why I didn't want to talk to her, or why I didn't, you know, which is why we have breakfast now, because I guess we're trying to make up for like the lost time a little bit.
It's nice that you have that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Because growing up, you were angry and confused and hurt, and now as an adult, you understand that they were just, even though they were your parents, they weren't superheroes, right? They were just two human beings trying to figure life out, making mistakes and hurting each other, hurting themselves, and hurting you along the way, not intentionally. And so you're able to look at it from another perspective, and that's part of the healing journey also. And so you're able to kind of let them in and accept them, you know, from a different angle, and you're able to kind of like give your inner child the opportunity to be like, you know, you guys sucked a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have done a little better. I know you did the best you could with what you had at the time, but
it was the 80s,
could have done a little better, you know?
Maybe they did the best with what they had, but it just wasn't what you needed. And so it was hard, right? Even when we do the best, you know, with what we have, sometimes it still sucks. And it leaves our children, you know, dealing with shit.
Yeah.
You know, my kids unfortunately had to go through this whole thing also. Their father, my ex-husband, was an alcoholic, and I healed, but he didn't.
Right.
So I reached a point in my life and my healing journey from my childhood trauma where I said, it is no longer my role to take care of and have broken wing syndrome. And so I'm better. And if he's not going to heal, and he's not going to get help, and he's not going to get sober, and we are going to keep going down this road and cycling, then I have to leave, because, you know, this is no longer fitting. Talking about, you know, family roles. It was no longer fitting my role. Right. To be the caretaker. And so we did get divorced. And so it was, you know, it was a hard time for my kids too. And so I'm sure that they have issue with me. I know they have issue with their father. It's all hard.
Such a scary decision to make.
Took me a long time.
Yeah.
Took me a long time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yep.
It's just like, it's so much easier to stay stuck in a situation than to have to go through the fear of trying to.
Oh my gosh, all the
do
what
what's right
ifs.
for you.
All the what ifs. It's so hard. And I sat in it for a while before I finally was just like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I got to do this. And oh my God, it's all so hard. Right. So I'm somebody where you resonate for me because I had childhood trauma, but your mother also resonates for me because I was single mother.
Yeah.
And your wife resonates for me because I have, you know, so there's so much in your story that can click for me, even though I never had a substance use disorder. Right. So there's so much to learn from somebody else's
And the healing is
story.
in the distance that you put between yourself and the situation over time. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's so scary at first, but like every day it's like you're moving a little bit further away from that trauma. or drinking or whatever it is. Like
You're writing new stories.
Oreos will never.
Yeah, you're writing new stories.
I'm literally thinking about them right now. Yeah, but it's
yeah,
it's
you're rewiring your brain.
scary.
You're moving away from the story. You're creating new habits, new patterns, new roles for yourself, new relationship with emotion, new relationship with yourself, a new relationship with the people in your life at your own pace.
Yeah.
Which is why getting help is so important.
Yeah. There's a piece of literature in the 12-step thing, and it says it's about fear, and I'm going to not quote it perfectly, but everything comes down to either fear of not getting what you want or fear of losing what you have. Mm. So if you think about that for a second, like that's what kept me stuck in different situations, and switching careers too. Like that was a huge thing for me, switching careers as a 50-year-old man, right? Like
because everyone missed that it was 50.
Yeah. Like, what am I going to, fear of not getting what I want? Like, am I going to get another job that I'm respected in, or I'm going to make money or whatever? And fear of losing what I have, like this comfortable situation, are my kids going to hate me? Or they, it's like all this stuff. And until you just like, jump out of the plane, right? You're just never going to know.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Or just say, you know what, this might be scary, but I'm going to do it scared.
Yeah.
Right. I wish I could talk to you for another 16 hours, but I know we have to wrap up.
Well, you might become my therapist.
Yeah.
She's good.
We do have to talk about that. Not you don't have to, because you will have substance use disorder if you take me on. And then we can talk about that too.
You know what? Everyone thinks that. Everyone's always like, oh my God, I'll be the craziest patient you ever had. I'll break you. And it's just like, you know what? Every human being has a story.
Yeah.
No story is so jarring that a therapist can't handle it.
Well, the greatest thing about starting with a new therapist is I'm just going to be like,
here,
just take here. And then we'll talk in like a week.
But the healing is in telling your story. So you have to tell it.
I don't want to tell it anymore.
Read it.
I'm done with telling my story.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I know.
That's okay. We're almost done.
So before we end, our listeners and our viewers, where can they find you, your website, your book? Tell us all the things.
Yeah. Well, the book you can find anywhere you can buy books online right now. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, whatever, Walmart, all that stuff. Hopefully it'll be in bookstores soon, and recording the audiobook look for that maybe around the holidays. SoberNotSubtle.com. All my socials are on there as well. And I encourage people that have a story to tell, or they want to write about something that's important to them. You can pick a subject that has to do with recovery or mental health and send it to stories@sobernotsubtle.com or sobernotsubtle@gmail.com. We'd love to publish your story and put it on the site. And I don't know. That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Any last thoughts that, something that you really wanted to say that you didn't get to say before we close out?
Not really. Just like, I don't know. It's really hard to tell somebody to not be afraid to speak up and say that you need help. But, you got to start somewhere. And, you can save a lot of time and a lot of pain if you just find that one person you can talk to. It doesn't have to be a therapist or your mom or your dad.
But it should not be AI.
God.
It could start with AI if you're asking what is a good place to talk to somebody.
How do I get sober?
Yeah, just
finding
talk.
A place to go.
Just talk to someone and be kind. Like, you never know what somebody's going through. So just try to be kind out there, especially now. There's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I don't know. That's it. Let's go eat Oreos.
Yeah. Yay. Heather, any last thoughts?
No.
We good?
We are good. I didn't get to do my extra special reading from the book, but we'll have to do that.
You were going to do a reading?
I was going to do a reading from your book.
If you would have told me, I would have made sure we had time for it.
12 pages printed out. Just
could we do one? You don't even have to put it in. I just want to hear it. Can we?
We can do it after. We can wrap
Why
up.
do people do that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Is it long?
No.
We're
good. We're good.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Oh my God. A lot of pressure. No.
Do
It's time to go. We can do it later.
Where is it?
Now she's embarrassed.
Yes, I am.
Where is it?
Pick one.
You read a
Here,
bunch.
the if onlys. Can you read your thing
You
before
want
we wrap
me to
up?
read it?
Yes.
Didn't you think she was going to read it?
I was going to, but let's hear how it's going to sound on the audiobook.
Do you want me to read it?
You can read it.
You read it. You want to
Maybe we
read
should-
it.
These guys are like,
What time to go?
Do you guys want to read it?
he's like, bruh. can hear it.
No one's reading it. We're editing it out.
okay.
Fine.
It's
You
okay.
just wanted to make us feel bad about it. I get it.
Come on, I want to do the why do people do that?
Okay, ready?
Okay.
All right, pod people.
Can you just look at me when I have to say it? I don't
You'll
know
have
when
to
to do it.
feel it out.
I'll go
Okay,
like
I'll feel it.
this.
Forget it.
I'll go like this.
Okay,
Point at you.
go ahead.
Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We
is
loved
fun.
this conversation. It was wonderful.
Thanks, pal.
Yeah, pal. So you know the drill, people.
Like,
subscribe, like, recommend, share. We're on YouTube and Spotify and Apple
And iHeartRadio. And what's funny is I was looking at the YouTube and we never mentioned you can follow us on Instagram and
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and
and-
TikTok, I think.
Yeah, no, I think we're still working.
We're
out
still
the
working on
TikTok
that.
kink.
We can't figure out TikTok because we're old.
It's horrible.
All the things. Follow us, share us, tell people about us. That helps you and it helps the podcast. And that's it. I'm Stacy.
And I'm Heather.
And that's Jason. And we are
Why Do People Do That?
See you next time. Bye. Why Do People Do That is recorded and produced by Press Record Studios.